Namaste everybody. This is the third part of a series that shows how to use a particular tuner app for Indian classical music. This part is a little bit more advanced than the previous two because it uses some more advanced concepts of Indian music. Parts 1 and 2 showed how to change a tuner app setting so that it can be applied properly to Indian classical music, which uses just intonation. You'll recall that in just intonation, svara frequencies bear simple ratio relationships to the base sa. However, there are many different versions of just intonation. For example, you can have the Pythagorean just intonation, you can have the fifths intonation. What is previously used was the commonly used Western just intonation. The Indian music just intonation differs slightly and is in fact raga dependent. So in following the previous instructions, you're likely to be out just slightly though in a few of the swaras. How do we overcome this shortcoming? Fortunately, some tuner apps, such as the one shown above, which is called a Pano tuner, allows one to make changes to incorporate the Indian just intonation scales or any just intonation scale, because you can input your own scale. However, this requires more settings in which a new just intonation scale is created that uses the Indian music scale ratios. First, however, you'll need to understand that Indian music really involves 22 notes to the octave and not just 12. However, the app uses only 12 notes, so you have to choose judicially which 12 of the 22 notes you're going to use for the setup. What are these 22 notes? Basically, the 22 notes are your sa, pa, and with the remaining 10 notes, the usual 10 notes, there are two variations to choose from, and the two variations differ slightly from each other. When playing or singing a rag, which one of the two variations should be used? After a lot of listening to the masters, the performer will automatically by ear choose the right variation. There is also a mathematical logic too in this choice. Generally, the ear will choose automatically that variation that sounds most pleasant when transiting from the previous note played, which usually means choosing the variation that has the simplest ratio to the previous note. How does one use a tuner app to choose between these 22 Sruthis when playing a rag or for tuning an instrument? A well-seasoned musician will not need a tuner to check the notes. Through practice and listening, his ear will guide him. The ear is your best guide, and there can be no better guide. However, a tuner app correctly set can guide a beginner who might not know quite the intricacies of a particular rag, and will be useful to tune an instrument such as making of a flute. If a tuner app has the ability to show all 22 Shrutis notes, well, great. However, most tuner apps are based on a 12-note octave and not a 22-note octave. So which of the 12 notes should we pick to set up our tuner app? In order to set up our own just intonation Indian scale, we need to choose 12 out of these 22 Shruti scale. Which 12 do we use? Well, sa and pa are fixed, so there's no question there. For the other 10 notes, the variation chosen depends on the rag. For example, a rag like Hindustani Tori uses the lower komal ga, while Kafi uses the higher variety. So which variation should we use? Common sense is the best guide here. One would want to choose the variation that is used most frequently. And also for instruments, tuning instruments, one would want to choose the variation that makes it easy also to use the alternate very easily. Ma is also an easy choice, since the 4/3 ma coordinates beautifully with the tambura drone, is a very simple fraction, has the best relationship with the other notes, and unsurprisingly is the most widely used, occurring in rags such as Bilawal, Kamaj, Bhairavi, and Malkones. The 5/4 ga is also an easy choice for your Sud ga because this is the most common, the one with the simplest ratio to the sa. After sa, pa, and ma, it is this ga that one can also hear in a well-tuned tambura if you pay very close attention. Note that this ga is the fourth harmonic demonstrated in my video on flute harmonics. This ga is present in many common rags such as Bilawal, Yaman, Bhupali. These common rags also use the 9/8 re and the 27/16 dha. So these have also been used for the Shuddh re and Shuddh dha. For the rest of the swaras, it is a matter of personal choice to some extent. In stringed instruments, the lower note variation might be preferable for tuning because the higher variation, when needed, can be produced by just pressing the strings slightly more. The above are my choices as a flutist and based on the most commonly used variations. In part 2 of using a tuner app for Indian music presentation, I've given a set of frequencies for one to change from A equals 440 when you want to use a just intonation scale and use a different key other than A equals than A. Now, those adjustments to A were based on the just intonation scale that is automatically given in the piano tuner. But here we are developing a new one which is slightly different to the automatic one in the piano tuner. And therefore we have a new set of these adjustments to setting your A. These adjustments are what is given in this table. You'll find that for many it's the same as what is given in the previous video, but there have been some changes. In this next short video, I'm going to show you the steps needed to incorporate the just intonation scale that we're going to use based on the selection of the 12 notes from the 22 Shruti scale that we have seen above. Remember that in this particular tuner app, which is called the Piano Tuner, you can only make settings adjustments in the paid version, but the paid version is so cheap, it's only $1 or $2 or something, so it's very well worth getting. So after you've opened up the main screen, you press the I button down at the bottom right hand corner to get the settings. The first thing to do is to make sure that the bass scale is C. So for that you go to temperament and you see here the key right now is D. So let's change that to C. Key is D. We're changing it to C. Okay, that's done. Then we'd like to go to temperament again. There. And we want to customize. So press the customize button, and the top option is add a new temperament. Touch that key, and then you need to give a name to the new temperament, and I'm going to call it Indian 1. Okay. Now I'm going to press, so you see the Indian 1 is an option here. I'm going to press that. Now this is where we make all the adjustments. It's important to note that these adjustments are not in terms of the frequency ratios, but they are in musical sense. For this you would need to know exactly what are the cents equivalent to those chosen frequency ratios. After going through the adjustments here, I'll give you a table of these scent adjustments for each of these swaras. Now, we'll enter two of these notes adjustments. For C, there's no adjustments because that's your basic Shruti. For D flat or your Komal Re, let's make the adjustment there. I want to enter -10. So let me go here. To enter minus, press the minus sign twice and then enter 10. And then press OK. Then I'll do Shudre or D. And for that I want to I want to enter 4. 4. Okay. So here you see 0 for C, -10 for D flat, and 4 for D. And so on. You enter the scent adjustments based on the numbers I'm going to give you in a slide. I mentioned that the adjustment numbers we need to put in for a chosen set of 12 are based on scents, musical scents. These musical scents are basically deviations from the equal temperament scale equivalent. And I promise to give you the values of the scent adjustments for the 12 notes that we have chosen out of the 22 Shruti scale. These are the scent adjustments you need to use. Now that your tuner app is set for just intonation using the Indian scale, you're ready to go. But wait, is there anything else one can do to make life somewhat easier? The setup now requires a small mental calculation. For example, let us say that your sa is pitched at E. If you're using the app to determine if your tivrama is correct, then it takes a moment to calculate that tivrama should show A sharp. Would it not be nice if the app automatically showed the note in sa re ga notation? Being primarily a tuner for Western music, there is no ability to show sa, re, ga, etc. But the app can be set to show the Western equivalents. Once you're familiar with these, then this will make the app more practical. The following table shows these equivalents. So in Hindustani and generally in our Carnatic also, it's instead of sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And in terms of Hindustani notations, whenever you have a komal Shruti, that's denoted by the letter B or flat. So komal re is designed by re flat, komal ga by mi flat. And for ma, shud ma is fa, but tivra ma is sol flat, where pa is sol. So once you've familiarized yourself, and it doesn't take much time to get to know these solfege notations, as they call, then it makes life much easier when you're using the tuner app. Once you've familiarized yourself with the Western solfege notation, that is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, rather than sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, and know that re flat really means komal re, etc. You're ready to make some changes to the settings in the panel tuner. Again, press the I button at the bottom right hand corner. Then go to the second option, which says Note Texts. So you got here basically two options. The first option says ABC, which is your usual notation, whether it's C or D or C sharp or whatever, to do, and the second option is do re mi. So you press the second option, and now you're set to go. Now I'm going to use a Hindustani Bansuri, E Shruti Bansuri, and play the scales of the Kalyan Tata Rag Yaman, and see how this shows up after we make these adjustments. We have incorporated the Indian one just intonation, and we're going to use that. But there are a few other adjustments we need to make as shown in the second part of the Tuner app video previously. Firstly, under concert A, we need to change this to 439.5. Then we need to go to temperament and make sure that this is at E. Okay? Then we need transposition. You're transposing from, you're making basically your note E as your C or as your Sa. So you press here, this. Now we're ready to go. Now that the tuner app has been set to an Indian just intonation scale, and you have familiarized yourself with the Western solfege equivalents of Sarigama Padani, it's time to show a demo. And for this demo, I'm going to test a E Shruti Bansuri to see if the scales are correct, if the holes are placed in the right place, if the hole's big enough. For this, I'm going to use two rags, Rag Yaman and Rag Bhairavi. The reason for these two rags is that both of them together cover all 12 notes. I've turned the Shruti on, and you can see that it's perfectly aligned with Do and Sol, which is Sa and Pa. So the adjustments we made are perfect. Now we'll play the scales of Rag Yaman to test the flute out. This is an E Shruti flute. Okay, the Do hole is fine. The A hole is also fine. Ga is fine. May need a bit of adjustment. The Tivra Ma hole is fine. Sol flat. Sol is Pa, and that also is fine. La is Da, that also is fine. Now I'm having a little bit of difficulty reaching the Sud Ni, which is the C. So that hole may need a bit of adjustment. The higher Do or Sa is fine. Which is Sol flat. Lower octave, Ni, Da, Pa, overall the flute is okay, except that the Ni hole might need a bit of adjustment. Now we'll test out Rag Bhairavi. Sa, flat is nothing but komal re. Mi flat is komal gha. Fa is that's da flat. That's ni komal. That's sa, higher sa. So, ni komal. So that's sa, ni komal, da komal, pa, ma, which is fa.